For today's headlines, let's go over to the CBN News desk.
Gordon, the Obama administration is reporting today that the federal deficit for the budget year that just ended was $1.3 trillion. That's the second highest deficit ever, behind last year's. As Paul Strand reports, there's no end in sight for these huge deficits, which is one reason why they're a major election issue.
Washington continues to spend so much more than it takes in, leading to a deficit of $1.29 trillion this last budget year. Those kinds of deficits are expected to continue till the end of the decade. The nasty recession is one cause, cutting the amount of tax money flowing into Washington. But many analysts blame the government's addiction to spending far more than it takes in. Much of that is Congress's fault, but the White House is also to blame, according to economists like Chris Edwards at the Cato Institute.
When President Obama first came into office, he promised he'd go through the budget line by line and cut out wasteful programs. He hasn't done that.
With Americans so disturbed by the long recession and focused on economic problems, these soaring deficits are likely to add to Democrats' difficulties come Election Day. Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke says the deficits are a clear and present danger.
The threat to our economy is real, and it is growing.
But the Fed is also adding to the problem. Its pumping of massive amounts of new money into the economy is sending the value of the dollar tumbling, hitting a 15-year low against the Japanese yen. Some economic analysts are warning the weaker dollar may help the U.S. economy by making its products cheaper overseas, but that could hurt the economies of other major nations. And that could eventually help destabilize the global economy. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
A lawsuit against President Obama's health care overhaul plan can go to trial. That's the ruling by a federal judge in Florida. The judge says the national lawsuit brought on by 20 states needs to be heard. Under the president's health overhaul plan, people will be required to buy health insurance or face a penalty. And it's that penalty that is in question. The judge says it needs to be determined if the penalty is constitutional. The case is likely to end up before the U.S. Supreme Court. President Barack Obama says that the don't ask, don't tell policy will end on his watch. In a televised town hall meeting, President Obama told the audience that the government wants a gradual transition because ending the ban suddenly could cause damage to the military. So the administration is appealing a federal judge's ruling that says the ban should be removed immediately. The president has consistently argued against the ban, but says it's up to Congress to repeal it. New restrictions on abortion go into effect in Nebraska today. The law bans abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy and is based on the issue of fetal pain. Under the law, women seeking abortions after 20 weeks will be told the fetus can feel pain. They're also allowed to request anesthesia for the fetus. Nebraska Senator Mike Johanns is using the law to push for more federal discussion on fetal pain. Critics call the idea false science, but Johanns says, how does anybody, pro-life or pro-choice, oppose this? If the baby feels pain, then it's an issue of human compassion. Authorities in New Jersey have temporarily suspended a doctor's medical license for performing unauthorized abortions. State regulators call Dr. Stephen Brigham's practices manipulative and deceptive, and a clear and imminent danger to the public's health, safety, and welfare. They say Dr. Brigham avoided state laws governing late-term abortions by medicating his patients in New Jersey, then transporting them to his Maryland clinic to finish the job. In August, a woman died following an abortion at the Maryland clinic. Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad blasted Israel Thursday during his visit to Lebanon. Ahmadinejad looked over the border into Israel and said that the Jewish state will disappear. He said the occupying Zionists will eventually have to go back to the countries they came from. Some of Lebanon's allies worry that Iran is trying to turn that country into an outpost on the Mediterranean. Heavy flooding in Mexico after Hurricane Carl last month left thousands of residents in danger of serious illness. But Operation Blessing has been providing relief to those hardest hit in the city of Veracruz. 2 large water purification systems have been installed, 3 tons of food and clothing have been distributed, and victims forced to live in temporary shelters have been given anti-parasite pills. OB volunteers are also working to fumigate flooded communities to cut the spread of waterborne diseases. They're also cleaning up many homes that have been damaged by the rising water. You can find out more about Operation Blessing by going to their website at ob.org.